Hello, fifth graders. Welcome to day 1 of week 6. Can you believe it? We have already had 6 weeks together. That's crazy to me. This week for reading, you're going to have 1 day of reading today, and then Wednesday is going to be another writing day. So you will have another video about writing an opinion paragraph, and then you will have another video. Nope, you will have 1 video on opinion writing, and you'll have another paragraph to write. So here's your homework for the week. Today, you're going to read this story on Think Central. It's about Lewis and Clark, so it connects to social studies. You have a form about the main idea and details. It also asks you some things about how the author tells us about historical events. So I will explain that a little bit in my lesson today. And then you have a form on vocab. Once again, on the vocab form, you are going to be looking at the Fab 5 vocab words and trying to guess their definition based on how the vocab word is used in the story. Like I've told you before, sometimes words have different meanings, and sometimes that meaning, you can only tell what meaning the author is trying to use by reading it in context in the story. So on that form, I have copied you this sentence or 2, depending on how much information you need from the story, and then I give you 3 different things that the word could mean. So you have to read the sentences, pick the vocab word out of it and say, well, based on how this word is used in these 2 sentences, I think it means this one. Then you click that answer. And then so that's today's homework: story, main idea, vocab. And then on Wednesday, you will have the paragraph to write, and you will also be doing your Think Central test that day. So the Think Central test based on the story. So that's your homework for the week. Let's see, here are your I can statements for today. They're kind of small because I wanted to try and fit them all in there. So the first one is, I can identify main ideas and details. We've had this one before. I can determine the meaning of words and phrases used in a text. We've had this one before. I can explore the use of primary source documents in a text. You might have had this one before, but not since I've been teaching you. And I can explain how the author explains historical events. Also, you might have had this one before, but not with me. So we're going to review some of this stuff. First of all, the story we're reading today is what's called a narrative nonfiction. What is a narrative nonfiction, you ask? Let me tell you. A narrative nonfiction tells about real events. It tells about people and places and events that are real. As you read, there are some things that you should look for in a narrative nonfiction. You should look for factual information telling you about the story. You should look for graphic features such as photographs and text and photographs and captions. Remember when we talked about text and graphic features and what the difference is? If you don't, go back and watch that video because that'll be important today. And narrative nonfictions also tell you events in a time order. So we'll tell you the sequence that something happened. So we're going to jump down here to how the author explains historical events. When an author is explaining historical events, there are a few things that he will do to help cue you into the fact that he's explaining to you something that happened. He will use chronological order. This means that he will tell you the time that something happened. Maybe not the specific hour of the day, but he'll say like on May 6th, 1837, he'll tell you the date that it happened so that you can then follow like, oh, this happened on May 6th, and then this was on the 7th, and this was later on the 13th. That kind of helps you follow the flow of the events that are happening. You'll also use descriptive words and phrases. Remember when we were talking about figurative language and how that helped add to the story? A lot of time when we are reading narrative nonfictions, the author tries to use as many descriptive words as he or she can so that you are super hooked in the story and can understand that this was a real experience that some people had. The author will also use text and graphic features such as photographs and captions and text boxes. These also help cue you in and add more detail to the story, just reminding you that this was a real thing that happened and that real people had real feelings about this event. All right. where does the author get all of this information to use in his narrative nonfiction? Well, he will get them from what is called primary sources. Primary sources are first-hand accounts of an event. So they can be a journal, a newspaper article, something that is telling you what happened by somebody who was there for that event. So like right now, we are in the middle of a crazy historical event. COVID-19 is a pretty big deal. There are going to be so many primary source documents from this time. Any newspaper report, any news like article on the TV, any journals that anybody keeps. I keep a journal every night. So if I decided to publish that someday, my journal could be a primary source for the COVID-19 outbreak. So that is where the author is getting most of his information. Primary sources, let's see. Lewis's diary is used as a primary source in this book. He recorded what he saw and experienced while he was traveling. Primary sources are super helpful because they contain insights on people's thoughts as well as descriptions on how they lived. So sometimes when we're reading a narrative nonfiction, it's super helpful for us to understand what the person is thinking while they're going through it. Can you even imagine going on a journey as long as Lewis and Clark's? I can't, but by reading a primary source journal article from Lewis, I can kind of get an idea of what he was feeling and thinking during that journey. Primary source documents are used to gain accurate and descriptive information. So like we've talked about so many times, when you are writing something, you want to be as descriptive as you can so that you can hook the reader in. And when you're writing nonfiction, you have to be super accurate in the historical event because nonfiction means that it's a true thing that happened. So by looking at the primary source documents, we're able to get this super detailed information because it's telling you what somebody went through. So while you are reading today's story, I want you to just really pay attention to the primary sources that are used and how it adds to the story. Another thing that we are going to review today, I don't have a fancy whiteboard for it because I only have one, but we are going to be doing some work on main ideas and details. We've done this before. You had to do a whole form on it, remember? And you're going to do another one today. So just a reminder, main idea, that is the most important information that an author wants you to pick. So today in my form, I asked you to identify the main idea of one certain section. So I tell you a section to reread. And so you're going to read that section and then tell me what the main idea of just that part is. What is the main thing that the author is trying to tell you? And then details are what help you get to that, get to that main idea. So if I was telling you a story about why biscuits and gravy are the best breakfast food ever, my main idea that I was trying to get across in that passage was biscuits and gravy is the best. I would want to use so many details to tell you why. I'd want to tell you about how fluffy the biscuits are, how yummy and spicy the gravy is, how you can add more milk to make it creamier. Those would all be details because they're helping me inform you, the reader, that biscuits and gravy are the best. So in that passage that I'm asking you to reread, you're going to have to look for what details are helping lead you to identifying the main idea. So you can have a main idea of a section. There's also the main idea of a whole text. So we've talked about this a little bit, but whenever you read something, there's always like the main takeaway that an author wants you, the reader, to walk away with. That's the main idea. It's a little bit different than the theme because it's a little bit more solid. Theme can kind of be fluid and kind of just interpretive with however you interpret it. The main idea is always going to be, well, this is the main thing that the author wants you to know. So I want you to really pay attention and think about that while you are reading today. If you need more review on it, I have that whole video from a couple weeks ago on main idea. So you could always rewatch that. If you have any questions about today's lesson, please ask your homeroom teacher. And remember that on Wednesday, you will have a new paragraph, but also to do that Think Central test. I hope you guys have a fabulous Monday. See you later.